Card arrived on a Tuesday, which I remember because Tuesdays when I do laundry, and I had just pulled a load from the dryer when I heard the mail slot click. It was a thick envelope, cream-colored, with my daughter's handwriting on the front. I thought it was a late birthday card. My birthday had been 3 weeks earlier, and she hadn't called. I wasn't surprised. She hadn't called the year before either. I set the laundry basket down on the kitchen floor and opened it at the counter. It wasn't a birthday card. It was a wedding anniversary party invitation. My son-in-law's parents were throwing them a 10-year celebration at a venue in Scottsdale. Dinner, dancing, a photo booth, the works. 60 guests, according to the little details card tucked inside. My name was not on the guest list. I know because the list was printed on the back of the insert, a seating chart really, and I read every single name twice. I set the envelope down on top of the dryer and went back to folding laundry. I didn't know what else to do with my hands. Her name is Blythe, my daughter. I named her that because I wanted something bright for her. Blythe means happy, carefree, full of light. She came into the world 7 weeks early, 3 pounds 14 ounces, and she fought for everything from the very first breath. I spent 11 days sleeping in a recliner next to her incubator before they let me bring her home. Her father had already left by then. He said the pregnancy had changed things. He meant it had changed him. So it was just the two of us, and I made it work. I was 31 years old with a nursing degree I hadn't finished and a savings account with $400 in it. I picked up extra shifts at the dental office where I worked front desk. I took online classes on Wednesday nights after Blythe went to sleep. By the time she started kindergarten, I had my degree. By the time she started middle school, I was a licensed practical nurse. By the time she graduated high school, I owned the small house we lived in. I tell you this not to ask for credit. I tell you this not to ask for credit. I tell you this so you understand what came later. Blythe met her husband. I'll call him her husband because that's what he is. In college, he comes from money. Old money, the quiet kind where nobody mentions it out loud but everyone knows it's there. His name is Prescott, which should have told me something from the beginning. When they got engaged, his mother took Blythe to Tiffany's and let her pick whatever she wanted. She picked a 3-stone ring that cost more than my first car. I wasn't invited to that trip. I found out about it from a photo Blythe posted on Instagram. The wedding was 4 years after they met. I contributed $22,000, my entire savings at the time, plus a small personal loan I didn't tell anyone about. I paid for the rehearsal dinner, the florals, and the honeymoon flights to Tuscany. Prescott's family paid for the venue, which was a country club outside Phoenix that charged $900 per guest. I was never shown the total. At the reception, Prescott's mother introduced me to people as Blythe's mother from up north. I live 45 minutes away. I smiled and said, "Yes, so nice to meet you," every single time because that is what I had been taught to do. After the wedding, things shifted in ways I couldn't quite name. Blythe called less. When she did call, the conversations were short, clipped, like she was checking something off a list. She and Prescott bought a house in Scottsdale. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, a pool with a Baja shelf, and I drove down to see it once. Prescott shook my hand at the door and then disappeared to take a call, and I didn't see him again for the rest of the visit. I noticed things. The way Blythe would glance toward his study when I said something she thought he might not like. The way she'd lower her voice when she mentioned anything about her childhood, as if being raised in a 2-bedroom rental was something to be ashamed of. The way she stopped asking about my life entirely, so that our phone calls became briefings about her life, her home renovations, her friends, her plans. I told myself this was normal. I told myself she was building her own life, and I should be proud. I told myself a lot of things in those years. Twice, she called me when money was tight. The first time, the furnace in the Scottsdale house broke, and they needed $3,500 before the repair company would schedule. It was January, and she said Prescott's accounts were tied up. I wired the money the same day. The second time was a gap between payroll cycles at Prescott's firm. He'd started a small commercial real estate business, and they were short on the mortgage by $6,200. I pulled from my retirement account and paid an early withdrawal penalty that I've never quite recovered from. Both times, she thanked me warmly. Both times, she promised she'd pay me back. Both times, she didn't. I didn't ask. That's the part I have to sit with. The anniversary party invitation sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I called her. I want to be honest about how that phone call went, because it's easy to edit yourself in hindsight and make yourself sound calmer than you were. I was not calm. I was 63 years old, standing in my kitchen in my slippers, and I was shaking. She answered on the fourth ring. Mom. Hey, I got the invitation, I said. There was a pause, not a surprise pause, a prepared one. I know the difference now. Yeah, I was going to call you about that. Were you? Mom, it's just Prescott's parents are organizing the whole thing, and the venue has a strict capacity, and we already hit the limit, and 60 guests, I said. I counted. Another pause. It's complicated. I paid for your wedding, Blythe. She exhaled. A slow, careful exhale that I recognized from when she was a teenager, and I'd caught her in something. I know you did. And we're so grateful. But this is Prescott's family's event, and they had their own list, and I didn't really have a lot to say. Did you ask? Did you tell them your mother should be included? The silence that followed that question told me everything I needed to know. I have to go, she said. Prescott's home. We'll talk soon. She hung up. I put the phone face down on the counter and stood there for a long time, looking out the window at my backyard. The bird feeder needed refilling. I had planted petunias along the fence the previous spring, and some of them had come back. The afternoon light was coming through the kitchen window at a low angle, and it hit the linoleum in a way that made it look almost golden. I thought, I have been doing this for 30 years, making myself smaller, accepting less than I should have accepted, rearranging myself to fit into whatever space she left for me. I thought, I am so tired. 4 days later, an email arrived from a company called Pinnacle Auto Financial Services. The subject line was, Your co-signed loan, payment overdue. I read it twice before the words fully registered. Then I read it a third time. Approximately 11 months earlier, a co-signature had been submitted on a vehicle loan in the amount of $47,800 for a late-model SUV registered to Blythe. The co-signer listed was me. My social security number, my address, my date of birth. The loan had been in deferred status through an introductory period and was now entering standard repayment. The first payment of $612 had been missed. A second payment was coming due in 18 days. I had not co-signed any loan. I did not know about this vehicle. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and my hands flat on the table on either side of it, and I stayed very still for a moment, the way you do when something is so wrong that your body needs a second to catch up to your brain. Then I picked up the phone and called my bank. The woman I spoke with, patient, professional, clearly experienced with situations like mine, walked me through everything. The loan application had been submitted electronically 8 months prior. My signature had been captured via DocuSign request sent to an email address I didn't recognize. A slight variation on my real email, one letter off, something I wouldn't have caught if I hadn't been looking. The account listed for me had been an old joint account from when Blythe was in college. One I'd forgotten, I never fully closed. Is there any chance you authorized this and simply forgot? The woman asked. No, I said, I did not. Then you'll want to file a report, she said. Do you have access to the original email chain? I didn't, but I had enough. I want to tell you what I did not do because it matters. I did not call Blythe screaming. I did not post anything on social media. I did not call Prescott's parents and tell them what their son's wife had done. I did not cry, though I wanted to. I did not make a single move until I had spoken to 3 different people, the fraud department at my bank, a consumer protection attorney I found through my state bar's referral service, and my own financial advisor, who had been telling me for 6 years that I needed to stop treating my retirement account like an emergency fund for other people's problems. My attorney's name is not important. What is important is what she told me. You have a clear case for fraud, she said. The question is how you want to proceed, civil, criminal, or both. What happens to her if I go criminal? I asked. She was quiet for a moment. That depends on the DA. Forgery of a financial document, identity fraud, these carry real consequences. I thought about Blythe at 3 pounds 14 ounces. I thought about the 11 days in the recliner. I thought about Wednesday night studying after she went to sleep. Civil, I said. For now. Okay, she said. And the vehicle itself? What do I need to do to have it repossessed? She told me. It was simpler than I expected. The lender, once presented with a fraud claim, initiates its own process. My attorney drafted the dispute letter. I signed it. The lender's fraud department opened an investigation and flagged the loan. 3 days later, Blythe called me. "There are people here from a repossession company," she said. Her voice was very controlled, very flat. "They're taking the car." "I know," I said. "Mom, what did you do?" "I disputed a loan I never authorized. That's what I did. You can't, that's my car. That's the car I use every day." "Blythe," I said, and my voice was steadier than I expected. "I did not sign that loan. You used my identity. That is fraud." Silence. "Did Prescott know?" I asked. "Nothing." "I need you to understand something," I said. "I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this because what happened cannot stand. If I let this go, I'm telling you it's acceptable to use me as a financial tool without my knowledge. I love you too much to tell you that." "You're destroying my life," she said. "You put my name on a $47,000 debt without asking me," I said. "I need you to think about which one of us started this." She hung up. I like to say I felt righteous and strong after that call. The truth is, I sat at my kitchen table and cried for about 20 minutes. Not angry crying, grief crying. There's a difference. Anger is hot, grief is cold and heavy, and it settles into you differently. I grieved the version of my daughter I had believed in. The version that I'd rocked through fevers and driven to swim practice and stayed up until 2 in the morning helping with college applications. I don't know when that version of her got replaced with this one, or how much of it was her and how much was the life she'd chosen and the person she'd chosen to build it with. I don't know how much of it was my fault for always saying yes, for never showing her that there were limits. My financial advisor called that same evening. She'd been following up on some account flags and found something I hadn't known to look for. A small automatic transfer, set up 18 months ago, pulling $60 per month from the old joint account, the same one that had been used in the loan application, to an external account I didn't recognize. $60 a month for 18 months, $1,080. "It's not a huge amount," my advisor said carefully. "It's not about the amount," I said. "No," she agreed. "It's not." I had that account closed by the end of the week. I put a freeze on all 3 of my credit reports, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, which I should have done years ago and hadn't. I changed the passwords on every financial account I owned. I set up alerts on everything that was left. And then I wrote to Blythe. Not a text, a letter. Handwritten, 4 pages, on the good stationery I'd had for years and never used. I told her everything I felt, not in anger. I'd had time to move past the heat of it, but clearly. I told her what I'd found, what I'd done, and what I would not be doing anymore. I told her that I would not be a silent participant in my own erasure. I told her that I loved her and I hoped one day she would understand that what I was doing was the only loving thing left. I mailed it, and then I walked back inside and made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table in the late afternoon quiet. The house was still. Not empty still. Quiet still. There's a version of a loan that feels like abandonment and a version that feels like relief. And I was just beginning to learn the difference. I should tell you what happened with the attorney and the loan, because some of you will want to know the practical end of things, and you deserve to know. The lender's fraud investigation concluded 6 weeks after I filed the dispute. They found sufficient evidence of unauthorized use of my identity and discharged my liability from the loan entirely. The vehicle had already been repossessed and went to auction. Whatever shortfall remained between the auction price and the loan balance became Blythe and Prescott's responsibility. My attorney filed a civil demand letter on my behalf for the amounts I'd transferred over the years, the furnace money, the mortgage gap, the funds I could document. Some of it I couldn't document, and those amounts I let go. In total, the documented figure came to just under $10,000. We did not pursue litigation. Blythe's attorney, Prescott's family, hired one, sent a counter letter disputing the characterization of the transfers as loans. My attorney advised me that the cost of taking it to court would likely exceed what I'd recover. I accepted that. Some battles are about money. Some are about something else. This one was about something else. It has been almost a year now. Blythe and I have not spoken since the phone call the day of the repossession. I think about reaching out sometimes. I think about what I would say, and then I think about what she said, "You're destroying my life?" And I sit with that for a while. I'm not destroying her life. I decline to let her destroy mine. Those are different things, and someday I hope she understands that. What I know now that I didn't know 18 months ago, I had trained everyone around me for 30 years to expect unlimited access to whatever I had. Money, time, silence, tolerance. I had done it out of love mostly. Some of it out of fear. Fear of being cut off. Fear of being the difficult one. Fear that love was conditional on my usefulness. I had handed over my retirement account and my identity and my name on a loan document, and I had done it all while convincing myself it was generosity. It wasn't generosity. It was self-erasure dressed up in a mother's clothing. My financial advisor helped me set up a proper budget last fall. I maxed out my IRA contribution for the first time in 4 years. I refinished the small bedroom at the back of the house, the one that had been storage for years, and I turned it into a reading room. Just for me. A chair and a lamp and a bookshelf and nothing that belongs to anyone else. I have started telling people no. Not with apology, not with a long explanation. Just, no, I can't do that. And then I hold the line. It feels strange still. Like wearing a new pair of shoes. But it gets easier. The bird feeder in the backyard is always full now. I refill it on Sundays. There are 2 cardinals that come every morning and a small colony of finches that argue with each other for the better perches. I sit at the kitchen window with my coffee and watch them, and I think that this ordinary, quiet morning, this uncomplicated cup of coffee, the sense of my own life belonging to me, is something I should have claimed a long time ago. I didn't feel small anymore, and I wasn't planning to. There's a version of this story where I'm the villain. I know that because I've thought about it from every angle in the months since it happened. A mother who had her daughter's car repossessed. A mother who had her daughter's car repossessed. A mother who filed a fraud dispute instead of picking up the phone and working it out quietly. I've sat with that version and turned it over and looked at it in bad light, and here's what I keep coming back to. The consequences Blythe is living with right now are the direct result of choices she made, not choices I made for her. Hers. That's not cruelty. That's just how it works. Every action moves in a direction, and eventually, it arrives somewhere. The years I spent saying yes when I should have said no, those moved in a direction too. They arrived at a loan document with my name on it that I never touched. Cause and effect doesn't pause for love. It doesn't make exceptions for family. What I wish I had understood 30 years ago is that doing right by someone is not the same as giving them whatever they ask for. I thought generosity meant availability. That being a good mother meant being endlessly accessible, financially and emotionally, without limit or condition. I confused sacrifice with virtue. They're not the same thing. Real virtue requires judgment. It requires knowing when your help is building someone up and when it's simply removing the friction that was supposed to teach them something. I wasn't wise about that. I want to be honest about it. I had the instinct to protect and provide, but I didn't pair it with the clarity to ask whether what I was providing was actually good for her. Wisdom isn't just knowing what's true. It's knowing what to do with what's true. And for a long time, I knew things I refused to act on. I knew the repayments would never come. I knew the phone calls had become one-sided. I knew. And I stayed quiet because quiet felt like kindness. It wasn't kindness. It was avoidance wearing kindness's coat. What pulled me through the hardest part of this, the fraud investigation, the attorney calls, the silence afterward, was not rage. Rage burns out. What kept me steady was something closer to resolve, a decision, made calmly and held firmly, that I was going to stop participating in my own diminishment, that I was going to handle this correctly, document what I could, consult people who knew more than I did, and then act, not react. Act. There's a real difference between those two things, and I think the difference lives somewhere in the spine. I am 63 years old. I have rebuilt myself from less than this before. A savings account with $400. A recliner next to an incubator. Wednesday nights, studying after a toddler went to sleep. I have always known how to keep going. I just forgot for a while that keeping going was supposed to include me. The reading room at the back of my house gets good morning light. I've been in it every day this week. That's enough for now. That's more than enough.